Nothing over the weekend has changed when it comes to college football realignment, and we are not one that's just going to say, oh, by the way. However, I've mentioned those many times. There's about a handful, including part of our staff with Sam Bradshaw and Brian Etheridge, and then what we do with this show, that there was supposed to be that meeting, of course, with Colorado, and who knows which ones were planned, which ones are about just administrative things, the university, separate campus, etc. But it was moved back, and kind of the story is that at the very last second, there might have been someone who just said, hey, wait a minute, I want to be much more involved in this process, whether it was a board member, a donor, could be both, but that a lot of things have maybe calmed down, and so who knows what happens. Not saying today, tomorrow, and not trying to just throw crap against the wall, hope it sticks, but this person is spot on when it comes to everything, including how he explained how Thursday's meeting was basically just said, we're done. Let's all kind of go walk away and then figure out a way to come back and discuss something different when we get a chance after maybe some of the heat had calmed down. So there's that, the possibility you could see, put an eye out just in case that might happen today or tomorrow.
What might happen?
Yeah, Colorado is going to meet again. That the meeting that was supposed to be on Thursday might be something that they post. Look for that possibility sometime today or tomorrow. All right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be nice when all that's over with and wrapped up and tied up in a bow, and people can, truly move on to the season and all of that. I mean, it's fun to talk about. I'm starting to get a little bit fatigued by the pushing back of I've seen the same guy put out like 15 different dates now at this point, and it's just like, okay, like sometimes just say you don't know what's going. Like I don't know. I feel like there's maybe a dependence on it. I think there's a lot of fun people who cover realignment, like who's the guy that you've brought up a couple. Flug Empire or
Craig Flugall.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed some of his stuff.
Well, that's because he was all over the USC thing.
Yeah, I've enjoyed, the various, Big 12 guys who have voices, and I know there's always like at least one West Virginia guy. It seems like even if it's the same person, it's always running around like that. I treat more as entertainment. I don't treat that as really factual, and I think it's partly because whoever runs one of those accounts has said pretty much like, yeah, I'm just like throwing stuff out there and people are, following along. So I kind of treat that for what it is. And maybe I get them confused sometimes. I don't even know if there's more than one now, as a matter of fact, but they seem to spawn at different times. And there's always a West Virginia account involved somewhere along the line. And again, I just treat that particularly as entertainment. And then, then there's just, others out there that it's just kind of, let's just keep throwing and just keep throwing and keep throwing, and then
if
eventually
you're right one time, then everyone forgets about the 97 times you were wrong.
And it's just I don't know that does. I guess it does good for interactions and things like that, but I mean, just in terms of the conversation and the enjoyment of it, it really takes a lot of it out for me because I love the speculation part of it. I love the what about this and what about that, but when it's clearly just slinging stuff, it becomes kind of silly, and I feel like we've reached that point in some regards. So I'm hoping that Colorado does whatever they got to do whenever they got to do it, and that this thing keeps moving on down the tracks. But last week was one where you kind of felt like there was all this scuttlebutt, and then absolutely nothing really happened other than the Pac-12 just solidifying their defenses. If anything, they really just fortified their walls. And I left last week not thinking like, well, this thing's about to fall over the cliff. I left thinking like, well, they seem like they're in the same place they were about 7-8 months ago when they came out the last time and we're talking about the unity. And maybe it was more recently than that. So I don't know where we are in the grand scheme of things. I still feel like my initial assumption that this would result in the Pac probably just sticking together, I still lean towards that more than anything. I'm always open to the idea that something squirrely could happen, and, Brett Yormark's got an ace up his sleeve or something like that, but I am fascinated to see a conclusion so we can then discuss that as opposed to the what if, and the what if's the fun part. I understand that, But there will be plenty of what ifs after this particular chapter. As for this chapter, though, I'm kind of ready to turn the page on this one, and I think a lot of people kind of are now. So we can all just sort of know. You know?
No, I think, believe me, and then that day you explodes for a day or two. What does it mean? Is it one school? Is it no schools? Is it two schools? What it might lead to.
And by the way, you had Joel Klatt out there today saying, I think Colorado's going to the Big 12. And so, you know, it's an ongoing and fun topic, and every time there's somebody else that throws their opinion in there, it spices it up and, you know, flickers those flames a little bit. Now, he did say that he wasn't basing that off of anything other than the fact that, you know, the Pac doesn't have a TV deal, to anyone's knowledge, even though there were indications that maybe that's closer than expected last week. But, you know, there's someone else. And I think, too, that every time, you know, you hear somebody make a prediction, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's informed, you know, like, because that's automatically Joel Klatt reporting that Colorado's going to the – it's like, no, Joel Klatt, the fan of college football who just happens to, like, put two and two together, thinks that Colorado could very well end up in the back.
And an alum of Colorado.
Yeah, and he just thinks that they could end up back there. And it's kind of like when we had Chuck Cooperstein on. Like, Chuck wasn't – you know, Chuck was like, I'm just looking at the TV deals thinking like, yeah, I think that probably happens. And I think that's as much as what we're hearing as anything else. But, you know, there's good info out there. There's, like I said, there's some fun accounts to follow and stuff. But I think for all of our own sanity and peace of mind now, and just to stop the war between the West and the South that's going on, or Midwest, that we need to have a ceasefire here pretty soon.
All right, so there's that. Congratulations.